What's up, everyone, and welcome to Early Edge Prime Time. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games. We got a lot of people in the chat. We got Danny Brasco, we got Mackenzie Brooks, and we've got Propstarz. So much to talk about. Brasco, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. 1-1 last night, but unfortunately, I went a little heavier, like a lot of us, on the Jets. And just done betting on the Jets. Add them to the ban list. Alan Lazard, low receiving yards total comes through. And I'll have a few more angles just like that. This kind of suppressed totals that people might be sleeping on in the player prop market. So I'm excited for the doubleheader tonight.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Danny Brasco has a ton of bets on these 2 games. Mackenzie Brooks, how are we doing tonight?
Pretty good. Got to see my girl Taylor Swift night 3 in Miami last night. Feels good going into the week. Vibes are high. Got the win for the Bulldogs, win for the Eagles. So I think last time I was on this Sunday stream, I think both of my teams had lost. So vibes are a lot better than the last Sunday I was here.
Absolutely love to hear it. Kind of a show-off brag move on the Taylor Swift thing, right? I mean, I'm not getting tickets to that. Brasco, Propstarz, you getting tickets to Taylor Swift?
No chance.
I am not a Swiftie, although I'm not a hater either. And as Mackenzie likes to say, vibes are high tonight. Vibes are high at Propstarz HQ. I am once again streaming from the beautiful A Casino, Hotel, and Resort. Truly one of the most amazing places in the Pacific Northwest. I highly encourage anyone visiting the great state of Washington or Oregon to come to A. They will take great care of you. Also want to point out, Sia, I love a bet tonight that's plus 2,000 odds that I am going to personally be sprinkling on quite a bit the moment the stream concludes. So just wanted to put that out there as well. So stay tuned.
Well, I was going to say, I'm just curious, is it in game 1 or game 2?
Game 2.
Very, very interesting. All
and
right.
2 is a key number, Sia. 2.
Oh, I already know what it is. I actually already know what it is, and I already love it. All right. If you want to guess at what that is in game 2, maybe it's a 2-touchdown score for a certain individual, put it in the chat. If you have a pick or a question, let us know what it is. Let's get things started with the Ravens at the Buccaneers. We see here we've got a 4-point spread. This was 3.5, I think, yesterday, earlier this morning. Ravens continuing to take a little bit of money. Total here is 50, pretty high. We're going to start with some official picks on the sides. And then as you all know, we do official picks on the props as well. It's going to be a full show. Brasco, get us started with an official play on a side and a total.
All right, so we're going to the Ravens side in this one. I think Baltimore's got the edge in this matchup. I kind of looking at that plus 3.5 and thinking, is that bait for sharp bettors to want to take that home underdog there? The Bucs have certainly been rolling and been proving me wrong as a doubter of them that's called them overvalued and overrated. But all they've done is continue to roll behind Baker Mayfield. I think the train stops here a little bit against a Ravens defense that I think is due for positive regression. They've been pretty stout against the run, but their secondary has gotten beat. And they've faced off against some of the best QBs in the league, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. I mean, it's been tough sledding for them. So even Jaden Daniels kind of did well against them, despite the loss for the Commanders. I think the Ravens flock in this one, Sia. Lamar Jackson, 22-1 against NFC teams. I don't think, like Larry Hartstein mentioned on the morning show, I heard him, I don't think it's a fluky stat either. I agree with him. Like, teams that don't have time, that don't frequently prepare for him and see him, just get lost. And I think Lamar lights him up tonight. I will be holding my breath on this under 50, which has since moved to 51. I like the primetime totals that get this high. I do expect offense, but I think if the Ravens get out to a positive game script, their run-heavy attack could bleed enough clock off. I know everyone's on overs, and I think it might just be set a clip too high. So I'll take the primetime under here and hold my breath.
All right, Proppy, it sounded like you had a response to at least something that Brasco said. I know you don't have an official play on a side or total in this game, but where do you lean?
I don't. I just want to highlight some of the things both these teams are doing, starting with Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's having an absolutely brilliant season. He's even better than he was last season, obviously winning the MVP. If we look at a lot of the advanced metrics, the Ravens offense is second in EPA per dropback. He's really just made tremendous strides as a passer of the football. The rushing efficiency has tailed off a little bit, still an elite scrambler. But yeah, as a passer, he has really developed in this offense, and we're seeing it unfold live. This Baltimore offense has been absolutely phenomenal. The defense, as Danny mentioned, has been the Ravens' sort of weakness thus far. The run defense has been pretty sound. The pass defense hasn't been as good. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay, their offense has been surprisingly good. They've even been efficient running the football, something they really struggled with last year with Rashad White. However, we're seeing a couple other running backs in Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker, really have success in that backfield. So I think these teams match up well with each other. I do think we could see a lot of passing volume potentially if Tampa Bay is able to hang with Baltimore, push them a little bit. But both of these offenses have been very good. Both have the viable MVP candidates under center as well. So really looking forward to this matchup. If I had to lean somewhere, it'd probably be with Baltimore, but nothing I have a lot of conviction with.
Yeah, fair enough. If you have a question about this game, particularly from a prop standpoint or maybe team totals, things of that nature, put it in the chat. Certainly ask questions for game one while we're covering game one and save the game two questions for later. Mackenzie, what does the SportsLine model say about the side and total?
Nothing too far off from odds makers for right now. We have this as a 3-point win for the Ravens. Definitely a lean to the under on a lot of the things Danny was saying. Certainly looking at prime time helps that. I do think we will see a better game from this Ravens defense. I think they're quote unquote weak numbers, again, like you were mentioning, to the likes of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Dak, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow. So I do think the world of Baker Mayfield. I don't know if I'd exactly put him in that category with those quarterbacks as well. So I do think that secondary starts to figure some things out tonight. I think we do see Lamar and Derrick Henry put up a little more action. I know he had two awesome passing games, but I think they get back to the ground tonight and really are just too much for this, this Tampa Bay defense to stop here.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's Brasco, go ahead. Did you have
Sorry,
something?
yeah, I just wanted to mention, I agree with what Ken's is saying, just to piggyback on that. Like Marlon Humphrey and Kyle Hamilton are better than, I believe they're 27th at secondary as an EPA per drop back. I mean, this defense is led by veteran guys, physical defensive backs that I think are just better than that. I saw someone in the chat mention Mike Evans is a little bit banged up. I think Connor Godwin could have success, but I think we can expect a better game from the secondary. And if the Ravens step up, could suppress the total a little bit.
Yeah, before we go further on some of the official prop picks, let's answer some questions here. Proppy, one thing I was looking at, a prop I really like to look at with respect to quarterbacks is completions and pass attempts. I noticed Baker's completions prop was 23.5. Now, for those of you that are sort of uninitiated on completions, that's a really high total. I mean, usually you're looking at 21.5, 22.5 in a prolific passing game. I do think this speaks to the fact that the running game may not get going against a very stout Baltimore rush defense. Maybe you have a take the other way on that, but either way, is 23.5 too high and is 36.5 pass attempts too high when it comes to Baker? Or is that something you'd be willing to hit?
It makes sense to me. I think the numbers are fairly efficient. I would concede at first glance they do appear high. Nothing I'm going to play over. However, if we look at this from a matchup standpoint, the Ravens play cover 3 defense at one of the highest rates in the NFL. It's a little bit of a bend but don't break defense. I likes to keep everything in front of them. They kind of want to force Baker to dink and dunk. So as a result of that, if they're able to push Tampa Bay, basically put them in a position where they have to throw the football more than they would like to, because whether it be because they're playing from behind, or they're trailing from double digits, or the run game just can't get going. This does appear to be a matchup where we could see Baker lean on those short to intermediate routes of guys like Chris Godwin, Cade Otton underneath, and kind of bend but don't break from this Baltimore defense. So the numbers do make sense, even though they are high. I do think the over would come in that scenario, because we're likely going to see a lot of passing volume if Baker's completing 24 or 25 passes and 36-plus attempts.
Yeah, and we're going to get to our props in a second, because my official play is on a prop. In fact, we'll transition there sooner rather than later. Arjun, you ask if Tampa team total over 16.5 is a good play. Yes, but that's why it's like minus 400. So that one, like, I think their actual
did I miss that or something?
Yeah, no, I mean, their actual team total in terms of like looking at like, a minus 110-ish type number is 23.5. Mackenzie, my question for you would be, do you like the team total over? I mean, the model just said 23 flat, so it doesn't sound like there's a big edge on taking the over 23.5 points.
No, it's certainly not my favorite play, again, because I am feeling optimistic about this Ravens secondary. I also do like, we'll get into it later, the underpass completions for Baker, and I'll talk about that in a little. So obviously my game script and idea of how this game goes certainly leads more towards the Ravens, less towards this Tampa Bay offense. But again, I just think it's all about the secondary to me that I think shows up. And although they have allowed a lot of big plays, it doesn't necessarily mean they've allowed a lot of completions.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if you think, and this is a good teaching moment too, if you think Baker's going to be inefficient, you don't go for the completions, you go for the pass attempts. But there's certain arguments against the pass attempts too, especially if you think the Ravens are going to hold on to the ball with that run game and that quick hitter passing game and just kind of have some of those 7-8 minute drives, which I think is an interesting angle. Let's take a look at the inactives before we get to our prop picks. I mean, you see them here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for the Baltimore Ravens. Nothing completely unexpected here. Brasco, any reaction to this? I mean, I think these are names that we kind of expected to be out. Anything that you're surprised or a name you're surprised not to see on the list?
Ravens-wise, nothing here. Bucs-wise, I'm looking for a number of their inactives. So, the Ravens look to be pretty healthy overall. Their starting unit's good to go. The Bucs have a number of defensive backs with questionable tags, so I'll be looking at their inactive sheet.
Yeah, and it does look like Vita Vea is officially active. Proppy, go ahead.
I was just going to point out Vita Vea's status for this game, as you mentioned, Sia, one of the premier run defenders in the NFL, a slight downgrade to Derrick Henry, although I will mention Vita Vea will be playing with a hamstring injury, probably less than 100%. Never want to see a soft tissue injury when you're 300-plus pounds, kind of relying on some lateral quickness there, but certainly not the best news for Derrick Henry backers tonight.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's get into some props. Mackenzie, I'm actually going to start off with you, then I'll give mine out, then we'll go proppy. Danny, what is the model liking from a prop standpoint?
We got 3 props tonight we actually like, and I just talked about the one here, talking about Baker Mayfield under his completions. Now, we would set that line probably around 21.5, so to get 23.5 feels like a nice treat here, but you look back, just since 2023, 14-11 to this under. And I just mentioned it, but this Ravens pass D have allowed a lot of big explosive plays, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's been a lot of completions. And I think our metrics of that defense are just a little skewed given the caliber of quarterbacks they have played so far this season. Now, I know that this Ravens run D is pretty legit, but when you have 3 backs that you do really trust, I do think there is a version of the story where Tampa Bay tries to keep this game on the ground and tries to keep this Ravens offense off the field, and you do not do that through explosive plays in the air. So I like his under. And then Derrick Henry, this is a play we haven't really touched yet this season, definitely one of the uglier ones, so not for everyone, but if we get 1 reception, I do think we go over 5.5 receiving yards. This was a tactic that they used in the first month of the season that was going really well for them. Running back screens, they were crushing and they were really productive. Then teams started to really just make sure that's what they were defending. And now that they've done that, now you have Zay Flowers with 120 plus yards in the first half. So now I do think Tampa Bay goes back to giving some attention to the wide receivers, opening up the running back screens in play action for Derrick Henry. And then we're going to go Lamar over his rushing total here. We have him projected for almost 60 yards. Again, skinny Lamar season. I've been preaching it since week 1 of the season, 4-2 to this over just this season alone. And even his yards per carry are up over a yard from last season as well. So he's had 2 awesome passing games in back-to-back weeks. So I just think we're probably due for him to get back and more comfortable on the ground.
Yeah, I like the play there. You know, what's interesting about the Baker Mayfield under is that if he were to get to 21 or 22 completions, and the under comes in, that's still a pretty potentially prolific game. I mean, again, these games are usually set for quarterbacks like Baker in the 20.5, 21.5. Maybe they touch 22.5, but 23.5 to your point, Ken's, it's just a really high number at the end of the day. Speaking of Baker, I think this is a good time for me to get into my prop. I said on the early edge this morning, I had a side, which is in the second game, but that I was probably going to give out a play on SportsLine later on in the day. That's exactly what happened. I'm going for Baker Mayfield over 1.5 touchdown passes at -114. Listen, I think if the Bucs are going to compete, and I think they will compete in this game, they could absolutely win this game, but I think the game will be relatively close. Maybe we see a backdoor cover with Tampa, but they can pass the ball. The receivers are healthy. We'll see about Mike Evans' hamstring, but long story short, the only way to attack this Baltimore Ravens D is through the air. I think they will try to run it. Somebody asked in the chat about Bucky Irving. Listen, they have 3 running backs that they think can be kind of okay. Rachaad White, Bucky Irving, and of course Tucker. But I don't think we're going to see a lot of success. And what that means is Baker's going to throw the ball. And especially when you get to the red zone, I don't think we're going to see runs from 5-6 yards out unless maybe they're from Baker Mayfield himself. But either way, I like Baker Mayfield to throw a couple of touchdown passes, at least maybe 3. He's actually hit this over 1.5 touchdowns in each of his last 3 games. I think Cade Otton is viable. I think Sterling Shepard is viable. Jalen McMillan is viable. Godwin Evans. I think there's going to be a lot of targets outside and inside the red zone for Baker Mayfield to hit. So give me his over 1.5 touchdown passes at -114. I'd play this all the way up to around probably -135. Proppy, you have a receiver on the Ravens that I believe you had last week and he smashed. And I think you think he's going to smash this week as well. I think a lot of people in the chat agree. Who is it?
Yeah, we're going back to the proverbial well with Zay Flowers here. Got this out on the Friday prop show at 59.5 yards. This is ticked up to 62, 63.5. Still very comfortable with taking this here. We're talking Zay Flowers. Love him tonight. Zay Flowers really looks to be a bona fide number 1 wide receiver coming off of back-to-back 100-yard performances. Has a very healthy 28% market share of the targets in this Baltimore offense. As I mentioned, Lamar Jackson playing phenomenal football. He's really showing and displaying chemistry with Zay Flowers. I also love this matchup against Tampa Bay. Reason being, Tampa Bay plays zone at the highest rate in the NFL at 82.4%. They also play cover 3 at the 4th highest rate at 42.4%. Zay Flowers, dating back to when he was in college, has just been a zone buster. He is phenomenal against zone coverage. He is one of the top wide receivers in the NFL after the catch at forcing missed tackles as well. So I think Zay Flowers is going to continue to be the engine of this passing attack. I think he has triple-digit upside in this matchup against Tampa. I think Tampa can push Baltimore as well. We know Baltimore can be run heavy, but I love me some Zay Flowers. I think this could be the last time this season we catch him under 65.5 receiving yards as well. So going to buy in as this looks to be a great opportunity to back Zay Flowers once again over 62.5 receiving yards for Zay.
All right. And did you already mention this? Would this be a potential ladder play as well, Proppy?
Yeah, I like him to go potentially over 100 yards in the matchup. Certainly we'll be sprinkling a bit on 80, 90, and 100, but yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, I got to tell you, Danny, if that happens, then Lamar Jackson, that might mean that Lamar Jackson may be hitting Zay Flowers deep. So talk to us. You already gave out 2 official plays on the side in total. Talk to us about 2 props you like in this game.
Yeah, I love where Proppy's headed there. And honestly, while he was talking, I was betting Zay Flowers over receiving yards as well, because I think his narrative connects perfectly for a Lamar Jackson longest completion over 36.5 yards. And we know what he does. I likened him to a good counter puncher, right? You guys know I like betting on fights. And Lamar makes you miss, and then he makes you pay. And against a Todd Bowles blitz-heavy defense, I mean, we know Lamar can evade the blitz and then break off a big one. Now, what I like about this is that you don't even necessarily need big air yards to catch this. Like, he might find someone deep downfield for a bomb, but he could also hit Zay for a normal slant or a screen, and Zay makes 5 guys miss with his crazy shiftiness and juke ability. He's absolutely nuts to what he's doing to guys this season, just making them touch the earth. So I like Zay Flowers and Lamar to connect, or I like him to do it with someone else potentially. Could even be Mark Andrews, a guy that has all of a sudden been a little bit forgotten about in this offense, at least in the prop market, because he disappeared for bettors for the first, 3 out of the first 4 weeks of the season. But he's rattled off 50-plus receiving yard totals in back-to-back games now. And the one concern is, will it be an Isaiah Likely game? Will it be an Andrews game? I think after scoring last week and Andrews finding a 38-yard reception, that he's going to be able to go over this low total. Proppy likes the Zay Flowers over. Ladder. I can't argue with that. I'm interested in that. I think Mark Andrews is worth a ladder spot here too, because this is a super low total. If he's getting his normal 7 to 8 targets, Andrews could come back in a major way here. So I actually laddered him all the way up to 80 plus at plus 1,200, just small sprinkles up the way. And I'm looking for Andrews to get back involved in the offense like he always should have been. So those are 2 props I like on the Ravens side.
Yeah, and speaking of ladders, I was looking for a ladder in this game because I like to give one out on these primetime shows in each game that we do. The problem was I wanted to do it on the Tampa side, and I can't decide like who is going to be like the third receiver. Is it going to be Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan, Tucker? I will say that Sterling Shepard's ladder at 40 plus is plus 600. And I do think he's good for at least one long ball in the game. So that I think that one is a little interesting. And I'm scanning because I know people are going to ask. Let me change the subject here. Chris Godwin's receiving over. Proppy, I'm going to go to you on this one. It's kind of out of control at this point. It's 73.5 yards. Any thoughts on that? I mean, has it gone just too high to touch in your opinion?
This is actually quietly a good matchup for both Godwin and Mike Evans here. I've been incredibly impressed with Chris Godwin. This is a guy that I really had minimal expectations coming into the season, but has really proven to be one of the premier slot receivers in the NFL. He's very difficult to double cover and to really take him out because of the way the Bucs utilize him all over the formation. He's running so many routes out of the slot. It's very hard to take him away. So Baker and him have tremendous chemistry. And again, this looks like a matchup where we're going to see a lot of passing volume. Chris Godwin has been the guy thus far. So while it is a high number, I think he's capable. And I do think this is actually a plus matchup for him as well. He's also been exceptional against zone defense, which the Ravens play a tremendous amount of. So I like Godwin. Certainly would not be interested in fading him.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I do think 73.5 is high, but I wouldn't be interested in fading him either. Jose says Mackenzie is glowing. Can you glow some more, Mackenzie, with maybe some anytime touchdown proposition?
Oh my God, guys, I'm going to blush. That's such a great compliment. Yeah, we got 3 anytime touchdown props, and these have been hitting at a pretty solid rate, if I do say so myself. Now, I understand Derrick Henry, we're looking at minus 200. Not necessarily a ton of value, but relative to where we would put it, I don't know why he's not priced like Christian McCaffrey type numbers yet. So add him in a parlay, something like that to me is just a very solid leg to have. But Isaiah Likely, I'm going on the other side of this Mark Andrews train here. This was against Tampa Bay 2 seasons ago, was his big breakout game. Now, obviously, it's been a lot of time since then, but this defense for Tampa Bay is relatively still pretty similar. And when you account for 26% of your team's receiving touchdowns and only 14% of the receptions, clearly you're someone that Lamar finds comfort in the end zone. So I think this should be priced around like a 35% level. And this is only implying that has a 25% chance of doing that. So that's why there's some value there. And then Mike Evans here. I mean, plus 150 is awesome, awesome value. Same type of logic. You break apart, reverse engineer the odds makers here who imply that Baker Mayfield will have 1.7 passing touchdowns. And if you make up 35% of your team's receiving touchdowns, this should be priced, again, around even money, around minus 110, minus 105. So to get plus 150 and shop around, I know there's a ton of value all over on this line, but this is just, one of the best 50-50 red zone touchdown producers in the league.
Yeah, I think part of the reason I like Baker Mayfield so much to throw 2 touchdowns or more is because, it's kind of an obvious point, but because of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I think they both could absolutely score touchdowns in this game. Proppy, go ahead.
Just want to point out the great Derrick Henry on pace for 23 total touchdowns this season. That would be the second most touchdowns by a running back besides the great LaDainian Tomlinson. So Derrick Henry having a fantastic season.
Speaking of, Wu-Tang Forever says Derrick Henry over 5.5 receiving yards is minus 122. I don't know if that's a question, but certainly, Mackenzie, that was in your model, right? That his receiving yards over was one of the plays.
It was. And if you can get a better price for it to go over half a reception, by all means, do that. Whatever gives you the better payout. But to me, it's one and the same. All
right. Brasco, go ahead.
I just wanted to add on one thing to Ken's point about Isaiah Likely or my point about Mark Andrews. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers ranked 29th in defensive DVOA against opposing tight ends. So there's no reason that we both can't hit. They've really struggled against that position. And quick shout out to the chat. Samuel Gallegos said, Danny looks like he's waiting to get picked up at school. That made me laugh really hard. So I just wanted to shout him out. That was funny.
Samuel Gallegos, I think he's relatively new to the Early Edge family as of like a few months ago, but I've certainly, we notice everybody in the chat with all of your great picks and your comments and your questions. So Genuine appreciation for that hilarious comment because it's actually true. Also appreciate everybody hitting the like button and being in here every single day, every morning, every evening. Speaking of touchdowns, anytime touchdowns, or perhaps first touchdowns, we've all had our first touchdown bet called back before, and BetMGM is giving you a second chance with BetMGM's Pro Football Second Chance. Place any first touchdown score bet, and if your player doesn't score first but scores second, get your entire stake back in cash. No opt-in required. Here's how it works. Place a pregame straight first touchdown score bet in any NFL game. If your player scores the first touchdown in the game, win your wager as normal. If your player scores the second touchdown in the game, you'll get your stake back in cash. It's that simple. Log into BetMGM for more details. I got to say, not only is that a really cool promo, for me, like you guys know, I'm an attorney, right? A practiced trial attorney for 13 years. When I comb through paragraphs like that, the part I love the most that sticks out to me in boldface, not literally, but figuratively, is the no opt-in required. Because there's a lot of places that will be like, here's this awesome promo, but if you're just like quickly betting and you don't see it, and you don't get the benefit of it. And I think a lot of these people, whether it's sports books or otherwise, they kind of know people will overlook stuff like this. Really big time credit to BetMGM for kind of like building that in so you're getting the benefit of the actual promotion. So props to them, and props to Propstarz, because I believe now, before we get to game 2, we're in our first touchdown score segment, our gem segment, our club segment, and there's only one member of the 4 of us in the club as of now. It is, in fact, Propstarz. So, my friend, you get to go first.
Thank you, Sia. Although I do think I've had the most cracks at this, so definitely been benefited from the volume here. But nonetheless, I'm trying to get my second diamond on the board. I'm going to go with a guy who's in the midst of a late career breakout, and I'm talking about a former first-round pick, Rashad Bateman, at 19-1 odds. As I mentioned, better late than never for Rashad Bateman, who's really having a fine season, off to the best start of his career. That's been a bit of a disappointment, all things considered, but he's looked good. He's earning some targets as well, coming off of a couple strong games here. He has 2 receiving touchdowns already, so definitely looks to potentially be Lamar Jackson's second favorite target in this Baltimore passing attack, which has suddenly become a lot more viable and dangerous. So give me Rashad Bateman. I think it's a decent price point here.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman, for those of you that are college football fans, Big Ten fans, he caught everything at Minnesota. I mean, he's only 24 years old. If he can somehow stay healthy, I think this is a guy that's going to be in the league for another 8 to 10 years. So I like the Rashad Bateman play. All right, Mackenzie, I'm going to go to you next because this is a familiar name. You just talked to us about an anytime touchdown on Isaiah Likely, but you're going to raise and you're going to first touchdown, correct?
Yeah, and I won't just completely repeat myself here. So the logistics make sense, which I just talked about, but now we're just going off the vibes here. I got my first gem from a fellow Raven in Zay Flowers. I've been all over the tight ends this year, been all over the tight ends trying to get in the red zone. And I just think, well, not to put you down, Danny, but I do think Mark Andrews, people might be overreacting to the past 2 weeks of production. And I think Isaiah Likely,
Ouch.
I think the Bucs would be surprised to see Isaiah Likely as well. So I think it's a good value here. And I do think the Ravens get in the end zone first.
I believe that qualifies as smack talk. Danny, your rebuttal.
Man, Andrews already had his disappearing act early in the season. I think he's here to stay. But it's a coin flip. I mean, these are the 2 featured tight ends, and I'll be happy if Ken's wins too. We're both at plus 1,800 here. So if you guys sprinkle both of those and it's a Ravens tight end, you're a winner. I'll be happy either way.
Also, Proppy was trying to be like humble brag saying, not even a brag, just trying to be humble, telling us that he's had the most volume. Like, I've super been a part of a lot of these shows. I have no excuse not to have a gem tonight. But that was great.
That was very forthright of you, Mackenzie. I fall into the excuse department, I believe. I had Tyler Conklin yesterday. He scored a touchdown. Just didn't score the first touchdown. And I hate to do this, Danny. Like you and I kind of pride ourselves on sometimes going for that 40-1 shot or 30-1 or even 20-1. I'm taking like the chalk of all chalk here. For some reason, Chris Godwin is plus 1,100. I believe that's what the number is at BetMGM, in fact. But listen, I think the Bucs are live to win this game, certainly live to score first. And Chris Godwin would be that guy. Again, we're talking about Chris Godwin in the context of Baker throwing it near the line of scrimmage. He's not throwing it downfield a ton. And Chris Godwin is that perfect slot target for a quick catch and run to occur. So give me Chris Godwin at an unbelievably good number, plus 1,100. This whole show, when you see my next first touchdown score, I am kind of going chalk today. I'm a little embarrassed about it. At least my second one should be like a 30-1 shot, but I like the two I picked so much that like I'm trying to get a gem too at the end of the day. So, all right, let's take a look before we get to that Chargers-Cardinals game. And by the way, there's a lot of guesses on that plus 2,000 play. I think Joe pinpointed it correctly. So we'll get to that shortly, but here are the Ravens at Bucks picks. We'll recap all of the picks at the end of the show, but these are the picks. Take a quick look at them before we move on to Chargers Cardinals. All right, let's go ahead and do it. Chargers -1.5 at the Cardinals has probably moved down to -1 at most spots. The total, I think, is on the move as well. I'll have to double check that, but right now we've got it listed at 44. I think you all know from earlier today. I'll just get this out of the way. I'm on Cardinals money line. I like their number at plus 100 on the money line. You can still get the plus 1.5. I don't really have a problem with that. My argument on the Cardinals is mainly they've played a ton of tough teams. The Bills, the Rams, the Lions, the Commanders, the Niners, and the Packers. You look at the Chargers, they've played the Raiders, the Panthers, the Steelers, the Chiefs, and the Denver Broncos. Really no good quarterbacks there. Now you get Kyler Murray at home where he's usually pretty good. Again, I'm on the Cardinals money line here at even money. But Danny, you get to talk now. Speaking of rebuttals, you're on the other side. You're very sharp. What's the play?
Yeah, this is a tight game. I think the odds makers got it right in the sort of pick 'em odds. I'm on Chargers money line at -115. Justin Herbert has thrived in primetime. He's 6-1 against the spread on the road in primetime for his career. And I think he steps up again. He's 4-0 straight up on Monday Night Football, whereas Kyler Murray 3-7 straight up in primetime spots. I think this Chargers team, just their health is a big benefit too. The Cardinals are beat up just at a lot of positions, defensive linemen, linebackers. I think it's going to be tough against this style of Chargers football that's just ground and pound, possession, control. I think Jim Harbaugh is going to be able to keep the ball in their hands. The Cardinals, oftentimes the way they beat you is they get you in these sneaky shootouts. I just think that's going to be hard to pull off against a Chargers style of football like this. Whose defense has been pretty solid, whose offensive linemen, Joe Alt and company, are back and pushing the pile. So I think they win at the line of scrimmage and win this game for that reason.
I mean, the argument about the offensive line is a really good one that I can understand. I still think I'm right. I still think you're wrong, but we're going to have Mackenzie settle this for us. We got to see what the SportsLine model says. Mackenzie, of course, the SportsLine model says that I'm right and Danny is wrong, correct?
Guys, you can't take this personally. I'm just a speaker of the numbers, okay? The model just has to say what it likes to say. We do like the Chargers here. Now, a lot of that stems from their team total going over, okay? Going over that 21.5, 22.5 out there. And listen, this really could go either way, but it's not like the Cardinals have ever won the game on the back of their defense. Like, regardless of what this Cardinals offense does, I still do think the Chargers can take advantage of this defense. I mean, they're allowing 8.1 yards per attempt in the air. They're allowing 153 yards per game on the ground on almost 5 yards per carry. So whichever way it ends up being, and I do like Justin Herbert in a few spots here just to tease out some props as well. I do think we start to see him have some success in the air, getting comfortable in this new system as well.
Proppy, please tell me that at least this is going to be 2-2 and not 3-1.
It's going to be 2-2, Sia. And again, this is a bit outside my wheelhouse, but I'm backing the home team here as well. I think this Cardinals team is a very good, explosive, dynamic offense led by Kyler Murray, who I do feel is underrated. When breaking down the Chargers, they play at the slowest rate in the NFL. They run the ball. They're hyper-conservative as well. The fewest offensive plays run thus far this season. They're averaging 31.7 seconds per snap as well. So just hard to get very excited about this Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh offense. I think the Cardinals defense can play at least enough to give them some problems as well. There are some injuries for the pass catchers for the Chargers. Also, if we're looking at J.K. Dobbins, got off to a tremendous start. He's struggled actually from an efficiency standpoint over the last few weeks here. So I do believe that this is a good spot to back the Cardinals personally. Again, more of a lean for me considering my forte and speciality is in the prop market. But my friend Danny, who I have the utmost respect for, I have a question for you, Danny. Are you up for a showdown, my dude.
Put your dukes up, brother. Play the music, Snake.
It's gonna be a showdown.
Danny, I still get PTSD of when we had to ad-lib that song, just the two of us.
I was a deer in the headlights there. I thought it was going to happen again. I was ready to hit the dance, and you had my back last time.
Not with the snake on the ones and twos. You know that was primed and ready. So shout out to the greatest producer in the biz, my man Jake the Snake.
Snake is the quickest gun in the West. Everyone knows it.
That's absolutely true. Give a shout out to Jake in the chat. And again, hit the like button if you haven't already. Can I do something a little off script here? Proppy, I have to ask you this question. This is a fan of the show. He's been a part of the Early Edge universe for a few years. Basketball season, NBA season starts tomorrow. Really quick question. I want you to keep your answers super short. Emergency question, he says. We need like emergency sound, Jake. That would be awesome. If you have the first pick in your fantasy basketball draft, who would you take first? Is it Wemby? I'm torn and need help. It is Wemby, right, Proppy?
I'd go with Wemby. The defensive upside is just off the charts. We saw what he did in international basketball. I'll try to keep this short, but we saw him emerge as a bona fide, just absolute superstar. He could average 5 blocks a game, would not shock me. Shooting 40% from 3 on high volume. The guy just has the most unbelievable unicorn skill set I have ever seen from an NBA player. The best two-way player, I think, potentially of his generation, maybe of all time.
All right. Let me get to one more chat question before we take a look at the inactives and look at our official plays from a prop standpoint. Gipper's Picks asks Herbert over 1.5 touchdown passes at plus 144. Mackenzie, I'm going to roll that over to you. Does the model have anything to say about Herbert's touchdown passes?
Yeah, we do. And we have some value on some guys who will be on the receiving end of that too, that we'll get to with the anytime touchdown props. But listen, I think this Broncos game that he just had with 237 passing yards, I believe, just opened up a Pandora box that I want to get into as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. Brasco, your quick thoughts. You see value on a plus 144 there for Justin Herbert for 2 touchdowns or more?
I think I do. It's tough, like we said, in this rush-heavy Chargers attack, right? They're going to give 20-plus carries to their backs. But there's a lot of questionable tags on Cardinals cornerbacks right now that I'll be excited to see. So I know Murphy Bunting's beat up. Garrett Williams is beat up. I know they're missing, they have some safety injuries. So, yeah, I want to see what that looks like. And Herbert might be able to attack that for a big plus number. Not bad at all.
Yeah, some of those questionables may be playing, but let's see the inactives. Let's see who's actually out in this game. Okay, on the Charger side, this is what we expected, right? Quentin Johnston, QJ is out. Everybody else, Darius Davis is out. I believe he got hurt last week. We still have some O-line. Hayden Hurst is interesting, and we knew Joey Bosa was probably going to be out for this game as well. No huge surprises there, but I mean, I do think we have to note that Joey Bosa and Quentin Johnston, who has emerged this year, are out. On the other side of the ball here, I'm not 100% sure any of these are surprises either. Obviously, we have some defensive issues for the Cardinals. And again, it's not a good defense, but I do want to point out they're at home for whatever that's worth, but also they've played some of the most prolific quarterbacks and offenses. I'll say it again, the Bills, the Rams, the Lions, Commanders, 49ers, and Packers. That's who the Arizona Cardinals have played. So I don't know if we actually know how bad their defense is. Either way, Proppy, I go to you because you've got a couple of plays that I love. There's a Chargers receiver that I really like, and I wonder, because I haven't looked yet at the model graphics to see if Mackenzie is on this receiver as well. And I'll just be honest, it's not Ladd McConkey, but that's a good thing, right? Because you're on his under. Give us all your prop plays.
Yeah, I'm fading Ladd McConkey. I want to preface by saying I love Ladd McConkey.
I was about to say, you've been hyping up this guy Ladd for months, it feels like.
Which speaks to his objectivity, right? Because I mean, I think that's what you want to hear from a
I'm extremely bullish on Ladd McConkey's season outlook. I think he's going to be a tremendous receiver. I think we're seeing him emerge in this Chargers offense. However, we're seeing a very high number for him. That's why I'm fading him under 51.5 receiving yards for McConkey. I think this is a much more difficult matchup than it may appear at first glance. When we look at this Cardinals pass defense, it's really struggled this season. But again, they play a tremendous amount of cover 3 defense, the highest rate in the NFL. Cover 3 defense really diminishes the short and middle crossing routes. That is where Ladd McConkey thrives. So this defense is really set up to limit Ladd McConkey's effectiveness, which I think it will, considering this Chargers offense barely throws the football. They run a ton of clock. They're averaging nearly 32 seconds per snap. That's the slowest team in the NFL, and they've run the fewest offensive plays in the NFL this year, and that is by design. That is not an accident here. So I just think this is a low volume passing attack and a very difficult matchup for McConkey, plus a very high number. He's only eclipsed this in one game this season. So I just don't think the volume will be there to really support a number this high for McConkey. That's why I'm going to fade him in a matchup, again, that's more difficult than I think it appears at first glance. And then I'm going to go over to the other side of the ball, or the other team. And this guy is a sleeping giant. He is a potential supernova, and I'm talking about Trey McBride, one of my favorite buy low players in the NFL. Massive touchdown, positive regression candidate as well. Has yet to score a touchdown. I'm also going to bet his anytime touchdown, and I'm calling the shot here. If you guys have been with me for a while, you'll remember I've called a couple shots here on multi-touchdown players. Austin Eckler scoring 3 touchdowns were one of them, if you guys remember that one. But I'm going 2 touchdowns tonight for Trey McBride. I think you can get this close to 20-1 odds, plus 1,900 on some of the books I'm looking at here. But Trey McBride is the number one option in this Cardinals passing attack. With all due respect to Marvin Harrison, he's just not there yet. Trey McBride is there. If we look at a lot of the efficiency metrics that I weigh very heavily, he is, again, just an absolute sleeping giant. He is set for some monster game series, the focal point of this Cardinals passing attack. He's running routes in the most valuable parts of the field, in the splash zone. Kyler Murray is exceptional in the splash zone. Trey McBride thrives there. This is also in a super generous matchup against the Chargers, who are extremely generous to opposing tight ends. So I think it all lines up for Trey McBride tonight. I think he gets in the end zone once, potentially twice. Love his yards as well. So I'm taking Trey McBride anytime touchdown at plus 220. Trey McBride 2 touchdowns. We're sprinkling a little bit on that at close to 20-1 odds, over 50.5 receiving yards, and we're fading Ladd McConkey under 51.5 receiving yards.
Listen, when Trey McBride gets that first touchdown, as the first touchdown score, spoiler alert, you've got the whole rest of the game to root for that 20-1 shot with just one more. And I'll side note this. A lot of you in the chat play, DFS and DraftKings FanDuel Daily Fantasy. He's 5,600. He's really expensive. So people will opt to play Will Dissly or Cade Otton, and that's fine because I think both of those guys could succeed. But I think Trey McBride needs to be in your lineup. So I'm just going to point that out to everybody as well. All right, Mackenzie, we got to get to you because the one thing I don't do before the show, this is on purpose, I don't look at the model graphics because I kind of want to be surprised. I don't want them to influence, anything that I'm going to say on the show. So I'm hoping there's a receiver on there that I kind of like to hit his over, but we'll see. What does the model have to say?
Yeah, there's a few guys that could be beneficiaries of Justin Herbert tonight. I do like Ladd, but we're going to start with Justin Herbert here to go under, very well over. Let's get that clear. Over his passing yard total. Look, he's clearly down from what he averages, in his career, which is around 270 yards. I don't think we're necessarily getting back up to that, but I do think we're certainly cracking 200 yards tonight. And that's because he had this breakout game against the Broncos and that bye week felt like a long bye week to get healthy here. Look, this happened with Lamar Jackson when Todd Monken came to town too. It felt like you were trying to get familiar with the system, and this radically new system for Justin Herbert here finally felt like it clicked. Not only did it click, it was against a really good Broncos defense who we've been talking about all season, I feel like. So impressive to put up those numbers that he did against them. It might not get up to the 240 mark that we saw before, but I certainly do think he's finding his rhythm here. And like I mentioned, this Cardinals defense feels like the pasty to do it against when you're allowing over 8 yards per attempt. I mean, that's more yards than Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, who are all feel pretty high on. So that just puts in perspective how much this Cardinals pasty is allowing.
Fair enough. Is there anything noting a good or bad on the Chargers receivers?
I do like Ladd here, just to get in the end zone, just relative to the number that he's given. I also like J.K. Dobbins here. I know that's not a receiving one as well, but he's certainly another one we have value on. You're looking at a guy who, without Gus Edwards, should certainly be getting the goal line carries. And even with Gus Edwards, he should be getting it. So we give him a 67% chance of scoring a touchdown. That's why we have that around minus 200. So yes, while minus 130 isn't necessarily pretty for an anytime touchdown prop relative to where we think it should be, it's still pretty good. And again, a little bit of value on Ladd here. Maybe he still goes under his receiving yards and receptions like Proppy is implying, but just relative to where he should be priced, if you're getting around 33% of the receiving touchdowns on your team, this is a pretty solid value at plus 200. And Wilson we're talking about. I agree with Proppy talking about Harrison. Really just they're not trying to force him to be the number one target, and that's okay. Maybe it's McBride, maybe it's Wilson that's getting this here. So while you have Harrison priced around plus 140, plus 150, it feels pretty funky to me to have Wilson at plus 310 when I think he's been more productive. He is getting more production. So to have him priced so much higher than Harrison just feels like a good value play here.
Yeah, Michael Wilson certainly makes sense. I want to point out Joshua Palmer because I think he's a guy in QJ's absence that we saw him last week. And by the way, I thought Ladd McConkey kind of got banged up a little last week. So that's something to maybe consider with respect to Proppy's under. But I think as far as a ladder play is concerned, I mean, I'm looking at Joshua Palmer right now, and I know David Talk asked about his over 35.5. I do like that, but 50 plus on Joshua Palmer, which is a lot of yards, don't get me wrong, is plus 175, and 60 plus is plus 295, 70 plus 450. I think 50 plus is potentially in play for Josh Palmer. Proppy, go ahead.
One quick note I wanted to mention regarding McConkey. 0.29 fantasy points per route run against zone defense this year. One of the lowest rates of any starting wide receiver in the NFL. So this is a tough matchup for Ladd McConkey, despite it being against a very generous pass defense.
Real quick, before we get to Brasco's two props, Propstarz, somebody was asking about Trey McBride over 5.5 receptions, and I think they were getting it at like plus 105. Your thoughts there?
I like it there. I just think Trey McBride, because of the A-dot, it's deep for a tight end, because of his ability to attack the splash zone. He's capable of making these big 30, 40-yard chunk plays on a single reception, so I prefer the yards here. But I do like the receptions. It's more volume-based, but against the Chargers, who may limit opportunities because of how much clock they run, because of the ball control offense, we may not see the necessary passing volume to attack volume-based props. So that's why I'm choosing to go with yards versus receptions for McBride. All
right, Danny, it sounds like, just looking at the sheet here, that you have some agreement with both of what, like Mackenzie had 3 anytime touchdown props, and 2 of them I happen to be players that you like in the prop market. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, that was music to my ears because, number one, I totally agree with what she's putting down about the model. J.K. Dobbins, minus 120 I grabbed for an anytime touchdown. I see in the chat as well, Joe Everett said, I hate paying juice, but I love J.K. Dobbins anytime touchdown. He said, I don't see a scenario where he doesn't score tonight. And I absolutely agree. Like I mentioned, I mean, the Cardinals, maybe their ragtag defense can step up and play a little above where they've been. I think right now they rank 7th worst in defensive DVOA. But I don't know if it gets too much better in terms of the line of scrimmage and their ability to stop this Chargers rush attack with all the injuries to defensive linemen and linebackers. So I think J.K. Dobbins, Proppy mentioned, he has been a little inefficient with his carries. I don't need him to clear a big rushing yards total. I just need him to get down by the goal line and punch one in for us. So I see Joe Alt and company moving the pile and getting him in for one. Like Joe Everett said in the chat, don't love laying juice on anytime TDs, but the model's got it at minus 200. That implied probability means you've got great value. So give me J.K. Dobbins to get in the end zone for sure. And then Ken's was talking about Michael Wilson. This guy has been one of the more reliable targets in this Cardinals offense. And because Marvin Harrison Jr. has cleared concussion protocol in his back, this total might be a little bit suppressed, but he's cleared this in, I believe, 4 of 6 games this season. He's posted totals of 50 plus in multiple games, and he's had 4 plus targets in 5 of 6 games as well. So he's a good option in that short underneath intermediary routes. And Kyler Murray, also another quarterback with great ability to break off plays. The broken play is sometimes his best play. Michael Wilson's a guy that'll be open. So I think he keeps looking at him. This feels similar vibes to Allen Lazard last night, Sia, right? Low total, unexpected kind of third unsung guy in the receiver cast. Why not Michael Wilson? I think he goes over 30.
All right. Mackenzie, I have a question for you. We're kind of dancing around the Marvin Harrison question here. And I think there were some questions in the chat about him. I mean, his receiving prop is anywhere between 50.5 to 53.5, or at least that's what I'm seeing. So let's just call it like 52.5. Any edge there in terms of the model? I can't imagine there is. The number's probably on point.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's one of those guys that, the market likes to attack. We're pretty in line with superstars typically, quote unquote, I should say, but we haven't projected for 52 yards on 3.3 receptions. I'd say, and also the model has like an optimistic outlook on him, just relative. Like sometimes we start the season with some of these rookies and we realize, okay, maybe we need to downgrade them a little. Okay, next week, maybe we need to downgrade them a little bit more. So he started at such a high for us that I think we're still like working our way to maybe what he's consistently going to be. So 52 yards, I really wouldn't touch him tonight.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think the way I'm playing Marvin Harrison, I did 3 DFS lineups. I threw him in a DFS lineup, and if he hits, that's great for that. But I don't think I'm willing to put any of my hard money on it, especially after listening to all the analysis from you three on pretty much everybody else in all of these games. Speaking
the
of
Trey McBride campaign that we got going on the show.
Oh my God, this is such a campaign. Yes, we are all in on Trey McBride. Do we have a goose parlay tonight, Proppy? If so, I got to imagine Trey McBride is a part of this thing. Take us through it.
He's a big part of it, and shout out to the great Goose who's been in the lab working on this. Goose just doesn't put a parlay out every stream. He really picks and chooses his spot. Goose hit his last parlay as well, so we're looking to make Goose parlay cash twice in a row. And I love this Goose parlay. And we're starting with the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Trey McBride, anytime touchdown. That's going to be the foundational piece of this. If he scores this touchdown, this has a very high probability of hitting, in my opinion. So going Trey McBride, 3 legs, anytime touchdown. Then we're going to go to Lad McConkey's alt line, under 71.5 yards. I believe he's only eclipsed this one time this season. So high total for Lad. I laid out why this is actually a difficult matchup for him. And then just 200 passing yards for Kyler Murray. 200 passing yards, another alt total, far lower than his actual number. Put these all together in a prop stew, we get plus 550 actually. It says 525 there, but I recently placed this bet at plus 550 odds. So absolutely love this Goose parlay, just 3 legs.
Yeah, there's a good chance you can get a promo or, something to boost that thing up to probably plus 700 if you want to. Absolutely love it. I love to see Rebecca O'Connor in the chat. Longtime fan and member of this community. She is thanking Goose. Goose is not around, right? We can't.
Unfortunately, Goose is not around. He's nearby. I wish I was with him. I have massive separation anxiety when I'm away from Goose, but he will be joining the streams very shortly, hopefully by next Thursday.
All right. Well, that's we got to get Proppy back to Goose. So let's take over a few things. If you have any questions you want to ask us. Oh, Herbert over 18.5 completions. Brasco, any thoughts on Herbert? I mean, obviously this feels like a J.K. Dobbins game. But that 18.5 completions number is pretty low. Ramo wants to know, do you like the over or the under there?
Like I said before, I don't love targeting passing props in this Chargers run-heavy offense, but Ken's laid out why the pass yards total is quite low. 195.5 for a guy of Herbert's caliber against this defense. I absolutely can see him going over. Maybe I like the yards more than the completions if he breaks off, a couple big ones. And if there's a positive game script, he can go JK for 20 carries and maybe he gets scripted out. So I prefer yards to completions, I'd say.
All right. So let's take a look at gem number 2. Let's take a look at our first touchdown picks. And Proppy, you get to start. We're on the same guy here. This is still my pick officially, but I'm going to offer another name after you go. Tell us why Trey McBride is scoring the first time.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were on Trey McBride as well, Sia. But yeah, Trey McBride, probably the number 1 positive regression touchdown candidate in the NFL right now. So absolutely love this spot. If we're looking at his yards and his receptions plus his targets, the fact that he has not scored a touchdown is actually pretty incredible. This is also a great matchup for him as well against the Chargers, who are a bit of a tight end funnel. And Trey McBride really emerging as the focal point of this passing attack. So love Trey McBride in this spot. Again, sprinkling on the anytime touchdown, first touchdown, and 2 touchdowns as well.
All right. I'm also on Trey McBride at plus 1,400. I mean, I think this is a really good number, first of all. Second, if you want to add a fourth person in, because we've got sort of some overlap here, Will Dissly. I actually like his receiving yards over. I'll just throw that out there. It's not an official play, but I do like Will Dissly. And I think he could absolutely catch the first touchdown again, knowing that Quentin Johnston is out and we got Ladd McConkey, we got Joshua Palmer, but Will Dissly has really kind of asserted himself in this offense over the last couple of weeks. He's somewhere between 20 and 25 to 1. So he'll be sort of a secondary option for me, but Trey McBride is my official play. Mackenzie Brooks, who'll be going with?
So this is more, I know every time I come on here, it's all this analytical nonsense, but this is just a vibes play, okay? Former Georgia Bulldog, my guy Ladd McConkey, got the pleasure to know him a little bit. Great, humble guy. Very, very just good person as well. So if I get to get my first gem on someone I'd like to call a friend and a former Georgia Bulldog, I'm absolutely going to take that chance, even if it's 10 to 1.
All right. So you're going chalk too. So I don't feel quite as bad about my two chalky picks. And by the way, we noticed the not so humble brag. Danny, she's just showing off from start to finish. She's talking about all these big names that she knows or sees. I mean, I'm starting to feel a little self-conscious about it. Nonetheless, we got to hear, do you know Justin Herbert? Is he a friend of yours? And is he your pick for first touchdown?
I don't. I wrote to him several times, but just like Stan, it's like a Stan M&M situation. He just won't write back. So Ken's at dinner with Dalton Kincaid too, right? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. So, but I do like Justin Herbert, Mr. Primetime. Like I told you, he's 4-0 straight up on Monday Night Football. And I feel like he might have a moment here. This is, again, vibes play. I'm going for a long shot, 20 to 1 here. But like, every now and then, like a quarterback takes off in prime time that you wouldn't quite expect to be a running threat. And you have that moment that kind of is like, that boy's strong. Damn. I feel like you might have a that boy strong moment. Just kind of chest up, barrel someone and get through the end zone. Won't be JK maybe first. It'll be Justin doing it himself. So vibes play, plus 2,000.
Let's lay odds on who is first, whether it be Danny or Mackenzie on their SportsLine analysis to just read vibes or vibes play.
What if I write that boy strong? Would that be okay with that?
That would qualify as well.
If I was allowed to just like really like Gen Z my way through these SportsLine like picks that I make and really spoke it in the language that's in my head originally before I like rewire, you guys would be like, what is going on in her brain?
This calls for an early edge bingo card, particularly maybe a prime time one where like the people at home, so to speak, have like things written down on a list and they're just like checking boxes for bingo. It's distributed electronically among the early edge crowd, like splash zone. Proppy, you said it 3 times, like bang, one of those bingo. Like we've got all kinds of
nuclear.
Yeah, exactly.
Furthermore, can I take steal a page from your book, Sia, right now?
Please.
Type a 1 in the chat if you think Danny is going to win the showdown. Type a 2 if you're backing your boy Proppy. I want to see where the chat's at, Sia. Tell me what you think. I don't have access to the chat right now. Type a 1 for Danny, 2 for Proppy. Who's sending who a Venmo by the end of tonight?
1's in the chat, boys. 1's in the chat.
2. It takes 2.
This is like American Idol. 1 for Ruben Sutter.
I love that idea. A lot of 2s coming in, folks. In fact, it's all 2s so far. We need, we can do a poll. We can do a live poll, I think, in StreamYard. We'll do that next time. There was something I wanted to address in the chat. Mackenzie, was there anything else you needed to address before we get to the recap screen?
I had someone asking me more than once about a same game parlay that's plus 600. I accidentally found myself at 11 to 1. So pick and choose as you want, but I'm going to read that aloud for the team if that's okay.
Yes.
Starting with our boy Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown. Can't disagree with that one there. This is one where I'm willing, maybe this is one you take out if you're going for the plus 600. I do like Zay Flowers to go over his receiving prop. I know he's somebody that we're all on. I'm just taking Proppy's word here and trusting my boy. And then I'm going to go Bucky Irving over his receiving yards of 9.5. He has been getting comfortable in the receiving game, and I think they really want to utilize all 3 backs tonight, and he could get some creative energy going. Then we're going Chase McLaughlin over 1.5 field goals made. Honestly, a coin flip of whichever kicker. Primetime field goals just feels like a dunk every single time. And then we bought Lamar Jackson rushing yards down to 50. And I think he can go over that skinny Lamar era. This is just what he does. 11 to 1. Thank you.
Absolutely love that. And for those of you asking if I have a same game parlay, I'm staying out of this one, but you can expect on Thursday night I'll be on. I'll be doing a Thursday night same game parlay, and Sunday night I'll be doing that as well. But this one I'm leaving to Goose. I don't want to step on Goose's toes. I like the plus 525 parlay, so I'm not messing with Goose. Not to start the week on a Monday. Let's take a look at the recap screen. This thing is full. Just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and read this. Baker Mayfield over 1.5 touchdown passes at -114. Cardinals money line plus 100. Danny Brasco's got a bevy. Ravens money line -175. Ravens-Bucs under 50 -105. Mark Andrews over 27.5 receiving yards -115. And Lamar Jackson longest completion over 36.5 yards at -114. Chargers money line -115. J.K. Dobbins anytime touchdown -120. Michael Wilson over 30.5 receiving yards -110. Propstarz Zay Flowers over 62.5 receiving yards at -115. Ladd McConkey under 52.5 receiving yards at -115. Trey McBride over 50.5 receiving yards at -125. And Trey McBride anytime touchdown plus 220. And don't forget, 2 touchdowns plays 2,000. That's plus 2,000. SportsLine model. Baker Mayfield under 23.5 completions at -105. Derrick Henry over 5.5 receiving yards at -110. Lamar Jackson over 51.5 rushing yards at -110. And finally, Justin Herbert over 195.5 passing yards at -115. I probably didn't have to do that.
Someone goes Sia's in 2 times speed. That's
Yeah, exactly.
Credit card, APM.
You could always have a second career as an auctioneer, Sia.
That was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I did before the law thing. I was an auctioneer. You guys didn't know that?
Really?
No.
Gullibility.
All right, we got a game that starts in 10 minutes. We got 2 Monday Night Football games. Real quick, before we get out of here, Danny, I'm going to start with you, and we'll just go around the horn. Do you like the 2 Monday night things? I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like the 1 Monday night thing. Yes or no?
Doubleheader's fun because we get all this action. Look at the recap screen, but I agree. I like zoning on a 1 standalone primetime game. The market is always good in standalone games. I like to fade the public often. So, but still 2 games here. I mean, more action, more fun. Can't be mad at more football.
Mackenzie?
This is far past my bedtime, the 4th quarter of the 2nd game, so I'm going to go with no, not a fan if I'm here to watch.
But Proppy.
I'm on the West Coast. I do like it. I will
yeah.
say I wish the games didn't overlap. That's my one
Thank
complaint.
you.
I like to singularly focus on one game and then watch the game in its entirety. I don't like to have 2 games ongoing. So that's my one complaint. If they space them out a little bit, maybe an earlier start time for the first game, I think that would be optimal.
At least stagger them by like an hour and a half so we can get to halftime in one
Exactly.
and start the other one. I mean, that's seems pretty simple to me, but I'm not running the NFL quite yet. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for participating in the chat. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for always being here. We'll see you here with all the recap screens, man. This is going to be a crazy recap screen tomorrow morning. Hopefully we see all of you tomorrow morning on the Early Edge on the SportsLine YouTube channel. Thanks for watching us. If you're watching us on Twitter, don't forget to subscribe to SportsLine on YouTube and to subscribe to SportsLine for all of our picks. This is just a microcosm of what we have on the SportsLine site. Let's have a Monday, folks. We'll see you next time on the Early Edge.